We all want love, but most of us don't want to date to get it. Because let's be honest, dating kind of sucks. But maybe it doesn't have to if we actually know what we're doing. Hi, I'm Sabin, and this is Reinventing Dating, a smart and sweary podcast for all singles to learn the mindsets and skills to date with intention and confidence. Join me weekly as I break down the science and psychology behind what's working in our dating culture and what isn't. Every week, I bring a new topic, trend, skill, or mindset that can help us get out of our own way to learn how to date for relationships that we actually want. Because love isn't broken, but dating kinda is. But I'm reinventing it. Let's do this. Well, hello there, sugar pantses. Welcome back to another episode of Reinventing Dating. I'm Kira, and we are back for a second week in our new series of common dating questions through a modern and healthy dating perspective. Now, a few things to keep in mind about this series. I'm going to be answering some of the very common questions that I get asked the most and that I see online, but bringing them here and talking about them through a more modern, non-gender role, healthy, science-backed, psychology-backed perspective. A few reminders. This is about finding a partner. So everything through my perspective is about partnerships, not just dating, not just relationships, not just getting a girlfriend or a boyfriend, but actual partner. I want people to be looking for partner behavior rather than just catching feelings. Everything I talk about is about partnerships, not just relationships, but both people being present, both people giving to the relationship, bringing things to the relationship, because that's what I see works. That's what I've seen work in my relationship. That's what I've seen in my clients' relationships. And I think that's what the future of relationships are. I think that women in general are pissed as we look around at the roles that we have been expected to do. And I think back, I spent a lot of my time looking at history, philosophizing. I fully understand how we got to the place that we have gotten to, which is women are the only one who can have children. And so for a lot of centuries, it was about protecting women and children because we are trying to make sure that the human race and the bloodlines and all the different things kept going. So more women were in the home, doing the cooking, doing the cleaning, raising children, because that's what made the most sense. Plus, without birth control, women were honestly on some level of pregnancy or healing from pregnancy or breastfeeding their children at all times. So there wasn't an option for a woman to be the breadwinner. That wasn't a thing. That might be true for 1880. That's not necessarily true for 2024. And I don't think what we ever thought was going to happen is that women would also start to work full time and still be expected to take on those kind of responsibilities. By the way, I'm not saying anything here about things that are good or things that are bad or things that even that are healthy or unhealthy. What we all have to realize and acknowledge is that plenty of women are making different choices now. The world population's doing just fine. So women get to choose to be in a relationship or not. Women get to choose to date or not. Women get to choose to have children or not. And women get to choose to go after a career or not. All of those things are options. What we never did, but this is a whole different podcast, is then teach couples how to distribute duties so that everybody feels good. And the growing pains of figuring that out in relationships after centuries of tradition, centuries of things doing and being the exact same way is hard for a lot of people to swallow, to change, to want to change. And I think that is one of the biggest problems with dating right now. And how we can get stuck in the minutia of dating. Do you guys like that I use that word? I'm super impressed with myself right now. because we get stuck in the details. We get stuck in the, but does this make sense? Because we've never fucking been here before, ever. Because I get it that if you have not put a lot of critical thought into dating and dating culture and how things are changing, you probably wouldn't think about this stuff. That's exactly why you're fucking listening to this podcast, right? Next, this is not about traditions or how we've done things forever. This is about setting every single dating situation up for the best chance of success possible. That's my goal with everything I do. Number 3, if you disagree with something, that's cool, but ask yourself why. Is that what you've learned or it's just what you've known? Has it worked well so far for you? Is it healthy? Is it actually getting you what you want in a relationship? And finally, anything I'm sharing is not going to be just some off-the-cuff opinion. This isn't like when your Aunt Rita would share with you about her life stories and choices. This is actually backed in science and psychology with research and a splash of my own experiences. Okay, episode number 2, a huge, controversial conversation. And boy, do I have thoughts about this. Number 2 episode is age just a number? I've got thoughts. Now, one of my favorite things about dating, and by the way, favorite, I mean it humors me deep, is the urban legends that women seem to spread to each other to justify behavior that they themselves might be questioning. Couple examples. Somebody might say, well, I know 2 people in all of my couple friends who met online, so I should definitely be online. When, depending on how old you are, the online dating success rate is really less than 10%. Another urban legend, something like my coworker Sheila's cousin had an affair with someone who is married, and now they're married, so it clearly makes sense for me to date this guy who's married. However, if we dig a little bit, I found just this morning, Dr. Janet Halper, in her book on Successful Men, noted that only 3% of men who engaged in extramarital affairs actually married their mistresses. And then according to marriage counselor Frank Pittman, men who do marry their mistresses have a divorce rate as high as 75%. Because the problem there is not usually their marriages, it's how they are in their marriage. And they're going to be exactly that way with you. Because they're not working on it. They're not going to therapy about it. They're just dating somebody outside their marriage. By the way, this is called confirmation bias. This is a cognitive bias. It's a thinking trap where we seek out information that confirms what we believe or want to believe, and then we disregard any information that goes against it. And why I'm bringing up these fun urban legends that I see in dating and relationships is because I think we definitely do this with age in dating relationships. So even though you might have heard the urban legend that your friend's son's ice skating teacher married her coach who was 15 years older than her, and they're still together, that must mean that age is just a number. Let's check the stats on that. According to a study performed by The Atlantic, the greater the age difference between the couples, the greater the odds of them getting divorced. Starting with a reference point of the same age couple, a couple who has a 1-year age difference has a 3% greater likelihood of divorce. If there's a 5-year age difference, the risk increases by 18%. 10-year age difference yields a risk of 39% of divorce, and if there's a 20-year age difference, the risk increases to 95%. Yes, you heard that right. If there's a 20-year age difference, the risk of divorce is 95%. Now, I'm going to out myself real hard right now. Danny is 5 years younger than me. So, first of all, he met when I was 41 and he was 36. So that's the absolute truth. And in honesty, and I tell him this, I actually wish he was closer to my age because I regularly make references and he'll look at me like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh my God, how do you not know? Insert this. But he also lived in a town of 70 people where he had 3 channels. for the majority of his childhood. So a lot of those references are really just that he didn't have access to them. But let's get back to ages and what makes the most sense for success. And although looking at those stats, I would encourage you to use them as a guideline and information. I have a personal rule of thumb for my clients is you don't even look outside 10 years age range. Just don't even do it. It's not necessary. The stats back it up. It may seem like a good idea, but what I do find is the people who really date or attach to somebody quite a bit older or quite a bit younger, they're not really having standards. They're looking at the feelings. They're looking at the connection. They're not really looking long term. And the relationships that I help my clients create look at the long term. We can't make instant decisions and then be shocked when 2 or 5 or 10 years later, we realize they don't want the same things as us or they're not in the same life space. So that's what I want to have a talk about today. It's not just really ages, not just the year differences, but life spaces. And when we look at life spaces, ages look really different. Now, what I mean by that is there are different times in our lives that we are going through a different life space. And I'm going to talk about those life spaces here. And I just want to say that these are very generalized, right? I'm using what is pretty normal for, let's say, the American culture, but you might have gone through a very different experience. I'm not saying that these don't apply to you. It's just to demonstrate what these different life spaces look like. So obviously we have our teen years. That's where a lot of us start dating. That's the high school life space. And then if you think about it, now we just heard that the statistics of maybe like of 1 year. Now, 1 year, when we just think in ages, does not seem like a big deal at all. If you're 36 and they're 37, or you're 28 and they're 29, we're like, yes, a year is nothing. But think about when one person's maybe 18 and the other one's 19. One of them's a senior in high school and the other one's a freshman in college. Those are very different life spaces. So although there is only 1 year difference between you, you're in different life spaces. When you're in high school, your senior year, you're graduating, you're all about your friends, you have prom, you're doing all of these things to wrap up high school. And if you're in college, you're having a very different experience. You're probably having more studying and homework than you've ever had in your life. You're creating very different kind of friendships than maybe you had in high school. You're starting to look at the world in a different way when you're not surrounded constantly by your family or your friends. It's a different life space. So let's think about next somebody who is 21 and they're dating somebody who's 25. Once again, that year difference of 4 years doesn't feel like a big deal. If we say to somebody a 4-year age gap, we're like, well, that's not a big deal. But one of you is probably a junior or senior in college, and the other one is probably out in the workforce, trying to find a job or starting a job, finding their first apartment. They maybe have 4 roommates. Those can be, although not that big of a difference in ages, they are different life spaces. The next life space is that early to mid-late 20s. It's a very different life space because it's a time where you are learning and growing and figuring out who the fuck you want to be. That's not only just my thoughts, that's actually proven in psychology. Our brains don't even stop growing and become adult brains till we are 25. Many marriages of people who meet under the age of 25 don't work out because they don't really know each other yet. And I'm just a personal believer that you need that time in your 20s to go, who do I want to be? I'm out on my own for the first time. I don't maybe have the pressure of my parents or childhood friends or religion or some other things that can really make us not who we are. So really that time from college to me until your late 20s is really just figuring out who we are. And the stats back that up, that most people who meet and marry under 25, the divorce rate is much higher. Now, next we have that weird life space, which is like the late 20s until I'm going to say maybe late 30s, maybe even 40. And it's a weird life space because everybody looks the same. You don't really know. You might meet somebody and think they're your age. You might be 40 and then you find out they're 29. You might be 29 and meet somebody and think they're your age and you find out they're 35. So it's kind of just this weird thing. If you're single, lots of people are out there looking. Lots of people are out there dating. So it can be really easy to meet somebody, flirt, have a great time, and then not until the second or third date go, "Oh, I'm sorry, how old are you? Oh, I did not see that coming." And then we're already like, "Oh, they're really cute. Great kisser. I don't know, maybe." I can definitely hear in my head young Kira saying, "I don't know, why the fuck not?" Here's why the fuck not, my friends. Why the fuck not is not the way that we should be approaching long-term relationships. Why the fuck not should not be the way that we are picking our life partner. Hey, if you are in your hoe phase, like fantastic, like go for it, have fun, make sure everybody's on the same page as you. But you do you. I am not even going to try to pretend that I have not kissed and made out with people way too young for me through the years before Danny. I'm not even going to pretend for one fucking second. But I also did not think that those guys were going to be the one for me. But I'm also not going to pretend that I sometimes didn't attach, that I sometimes didn't get feelings for people that didn't make sense for me to get feelings for. And that was really on me, my attachment style, and my loneliness. And then as we move up, we're in our 40s, which can be different for lots of people. Now, I just turned 50 this year, so I've just said goodbye to my 40s, but I really enjoyed my 40s as a decade, for sure. It's my favorite so far. I'm hoping my 50s blows me out of the water. So far, no, it's not. But I know people who are in their 40s who are grandmothers. And then I also know and have clients who are in their 40s who are single, dating, and still wanting to have kids. So that can look very fucking different. You might be the same age or within a couple of years of each other, but looking or wanting two very different things. Not too long ago in one of my Facebook communities, I was asking if anybody had any questions they want advice on or for the podcast. And there was a comment from a lady who said she was going on dates with younger men. And I said, "How much younger?" And she said, "Last night I went out with somebody almost 24 and I'm 31. And the thing I said, once again, is although that age difference of 7 years may not feel that different, we're once again looking at different life spaces. There's a good chance if you're 31, you might be dating to settle down into a long-term relationship. You might be looking for a potential partner, for a potential co-parent, for somebody to do this thing with you. Where is somebody who is 23? We just discussed they're still figuring out who they are. They're still figuring out who they want to be, what their value system is, what's important to them, what kind of life they want. And there's a very good chance at 23, they don't have any idea if they want to have kids or not. They have no idea who they are or where their life is going. So dating or attaching yourself to somebody in that life space doesn't make a whole lot of fucking sense. And as much as we want to say that age is just a number, we know for women, our age, parts of it has a timeline. One of the conversations I've had multiple times in my coaching is what I like to call the giddy up conversation. So a lot of women who've maybe focused on their careers, all of a sudden go in for a yearly checkup, getting a mammogram, and their doctor will look at them and say, "Oh, hey, are you interested in having kids?" And maybe this woman is 33, 34. And if she says yes, that seemingly harmless doctor will look at them and say, well, if you want kids and not a geriatric pregnancy, you better giddy up. Because I have had more than a few clients over the years who all of a sudden are in their mid 30s or late 30s, realizing that they haven't really focused on dating, haven't really focused on a relationship, and want kids and have no idea how and where and in what universe to find a partner and co-parent. And I know that we love to once again urban legend that reference to, well, Charlie Chaplin was having kids when he was in his 70s, and we might know another couple celebrities who had children way late in life, and that's not an option for women. But I always like to think back to the movie It's Complicated. Meryl Streep, Alec Baldwin, Steve Martin. I love me some Meryl. I love me some Steve Martin for sure. But I remember, if you haven't seen it, I'm in a couple spoilers here, but it's about 15 years old, so. But I can't help but think about that scene where Alec Baldwin, who is Meryl's ex, he's there, he's married to somebody younger now, and he's starting this new family again. He's probably in his 50s at this point, and he just looks exhausted. You can see in his face, what the fuck have I done? He married somebody who is Lake Bell, by the way, who I think is probably supposed to be 15 to 20 years younger than him. In that whole new situation with somebody younger, it made him feel alive again. But within a few years, they're having a kid. And he's now 50-something. I don't call that lucky at all. I call that poor ass planning. And if you remember the plot to that amazing Nancy Meyers movie that has like literally the best house that ever existed, you'll remember that Alec Baldwin comes back to Meryl Streep after divorce, after adult children, and says he made a mistake. He wants her back. He made a lapse in fucking judgment. And she doesn't take him back, thank goodness. Because choices equal consequences. And him cheating on Meryl with a much younger woman who probably was not asking him for the emotional growth, the connection, the communication, the things that Meryl would be expecting after a 20 to 30-year marriage. He thinks that his life will be easier and lighter with a new person. And guys, it is not. We have to think things through. Is this action going to create the future in the relationship I actually want to have? Now let's take this in a little bit different of a life space direction. Let's say you're late 20s, early 30s, and you've met somebody who's maybe 15 to 20 years older than you, but in great shape, young at heart, out hiking every weekend, living their best life. And we act the same because we're both adults and we want the same thing because maybe they want a second family because they fucked up the first one. Or maybe they just now are getting around to having kids. Okay, maybe. But you need to be saying to yourself, if I'm 35 and I know I want to have kids, probably somebody who's 25 isn't going to be a great match for that because that's not on the top of their goal list. Or they're really not ready to settle down and become a dad yet. I don't know who you were at 25. I drank every day and was kind of an idiot. Or then dating somebody who is 45 or 50. You might be like, we're the same. It's all good. We are both adults. But listen, they're going to be retired by the time that your kids are graduating from high school. They may retire in the next 5 to 10 years. Are you comfortable with that? If you're 30 and they're 45 or 50, do you want to be retired in your early 40s? Are you willing to go to a retirement community with them when they're in their 60s and you're in your 40s? You are probably going to be surrounded by friends who are their age. So all of a sudden, you not only are dating somebody or having a relationship or marrying somebody who is a certain age, most likely their family, their friends, their references, their values are going to be different than yours. I have heard story after story from clients who have dated somebody much older and it didn't work out because their friends hated them. Because they would get together in this friend group and everybody's 15 to 20 years older than them, judging them, sharing stories of the last 20, 30 years that they don't even get. That's not how you start relationships. That's not how you build relationships. And that's not how we keep them going. Because I'll tell you this once again, love is only going to last if you've built a relationship that grows it. You can't just go, oh my God, this person who's literally my dad's or mom's age is the one for me. And then 5 years from now, you feel like you're suffocating because you're hanging out with a bunch of 60-year-olds and it doesn't fucking feel good. I won't even talk about the fact that sometimes even in their 30s, but 40s, if you're 27 and you're dating somebody 47, there's a good chance he might be taking something to keep it up. Now, as a 50-year-old woman, I have no issue with that. I am hot flashed all the time. I'm going through perimenopause. We don't even like to discuss the fact that our vaginas become more dry and dusty, and you have to have a shit ton of lube for sex to even feel good. And Danny would probably want me to point out that he is not taking anything to keep it up. But as we grow older, because we're around the same age, we can see each other in that. We can respect each other and we can support each other in that. And that's really, really important to keep our love and relationship feeling good. Now, I can hear my 40s and up ladies over there shouting from the mountaintops, but I can't date guys my age because all the guys my age are dating younger. So first of all, that is also a confirmation bias. I am very sure that you can find somebody who is your age, around your age, that you want to date. But I would not be doing right by you in this podcast if I didn't talk about the fact of the normalization, especially of older men and younger women, and how I think when we're younger, we can really romanticize that. We can really think it's fantastic that somebody who is established and has money and can maybe, quote unquote, take care of us a little bit in ways that our parents didn't, can feel good. So somebody coming in and saving us can feel good. But I am grossed out by things I see online where I recently saw an interview with a 19-year-old woman and her 29-year-old boyfriend. Once again, 10 years. Now, 10 years to different age groups doesn't feel that different. But she is 19. She is just out of high school. He is now established in his life and career. And he straight up said on this video, I will try to find it and put it in the show notes, am dating somebody this age because I like to be able to mold them into being the person I want to be. Now, maybe you don't take offense to that, but I fucking do. I fucking do for all women. And the guy who is giving the interview actually looks at this young girl and says, do you have any problem with dating a misogynist? And I've spit out my coffee when I heard that. And of course, she's fucking 19. This girl has, you can tell by the way she holds herself, her self-worth is not that great. She's just happy that somebody likes her who's older and taking care of her and can take her to bars legally and all of this shit. And she just glosses over and goes, no, we're really in love. It's really great. We've just had this person say, the reason I chose her is because I could turn her into who I want her to be. That's gross. It's not okay. I think it happens a lot with all genders and age gaps, where a lot of times the people who are a little bit older are trying to date younger because they don't want people who already have established their values, who are not going to put up with their shit. Let me tell you this, you don't want them. You might look from afar and go, well, why are all the guys my age or all the guys I'm meeting or all the guys I know about, or some of them at least, dating 10 years, 15 years, 20 years younger? That's because they are emotionally and relationally immature, and you don't want them anyway because they are not capable of having a relationship with a grown ass adult. And as one of my favorite Instagrammers, Ginger Dean, always says, we're not doing this anymore. The number one solution to all of this is knowing what the fuck you want, having a general idea what you want your relationship to look like, to feel like, and what your relationship goals are. What do goals look like? Goals might look like whether you want a family or not. Goals might look like whether you want to travel. Goals might look like you having pets. Goals might look like you creating a life that you want and finding a partner who wants to create something similar. Opposites do not attract. Or if they do attract, it's temporary. It's not good for fucking relationships. It doesn't even make sense. We got to think about who we want to be, what we want our lives to actually look like. Do we want to be in that long-term relationship? Because without that information, we are welcoming and attaching to people who don't make sense, and we are breaking our own fucking hearts. And I've been saying this a lot lately, that I feel like at 50 years old, I am just starting to see and understand and then shake off the years and years of misogyny and patriarchy. And maybe you don't like those fucking words, but here's the deal. You and I, if you're anywhere over the age of probably 35 or 40, you probably learned to always respect your elders. And that includes gross men who are way too old for you hitting on you, commenting about your body, checking out your breasts, that we're never supposed to rock the boat, that we're never supposed to tell somebody that's inappropriate because they're older than us and they're men, and we're supposed to respect that. I respect people who respect me. I respect people who show up, ask thoughtful questions, want to get to know me, and I will do the same. And see me as a full package of a human, not just my body, not just my weight, not just my age, not just whatever. Danny does that. Danny loves me for all that I am, and I love him for all who he is. And that's not the simplest every single day of our lives. But we got there by having those tough discussions early in our relationship, knowing and asking each other what we wanted our life to look like. And I will tell you, just recently, Danny and I had a very tough conversation. I've been very honest about how things have been really tough in my life and in this business over the last year. Now there's been some health things that have come up. So we are regularly checking in with each other about, is this who we want to be? Is this where we want to be? Is this the life that we expected? And if it's not, how do we collaborate? Because we don't use the word compromise, because compromise means somebody's losing or one person's giving in. We collaborate on it and solve it as a problem together. That's what adult-ass relationships look like. It's interesting to me because I tell stories about the conversations that Danny and I have, or even just the conversations that I had with him my first year that were hard, that I had never had before. I had to ask for help on things. I had to ask for what I needed. I had never done that in my life. But that's what adult relationships look like. And if we don't know how to do that, then we're not setting things up for success. If we don't know who we are, if we don't know what we want, if we don't know what we need. And by the way, don't shame yourself for that. There's a very good chance that somebody told you who you are and what you should believe for many years of your life. So waking up out of that and trying to find out who we are and empower ourselves, it's a process, it's a fucking journey, and you don't have to do it alone. That's exactly what I do. If you're like, I know that I want to date more intentionally in the way that Kira is talking about, this is what I do with people. I do day-long intensives. I even do one-on-one kind of one-off coaching. So reach out to me. Tell me where you're at. Tell me, and we'll get on the phone and figure out if I can help. And if anything, you'll just feel better because I'll probably drop some super knowledge on you on that call. So, is age just a number? No, it's not. Age can totally determine whether or not your relationship actually works. But more than focus on numbers and ages, focus on life spaces. Is this person in the same life space with me? And as we continue to grow older together, will they continue to be in a similar life space with me? And if we are in different life spaces, am I okay and are they okay with the differences that are going to show up along the way? Because when we fall in love, or what we like to think of falling in love, we ignore that shit. We don't want to focus on it because we don't want to look at any of the differences. But I promise you, they are going to show up whether you want to look at them the first year or not. All right, guys, that's it for this week. What did you learn? If you liked this, if you loved it, please make sure you subscribe. Come check out reinventingdating.com. And one huge favor, please share this with the other singles that you know so we can all reinvent dating together. Because when we know what love is, when we know our mindsets, when we understand how we work, we understand the skills, we can get in better relationships, period. All right, guys, I will see you next week. Until then, don't forget to meet love halfway.